it going?
Okay. All right, so we're good?
We're good.
Yeah. So I just have to resync everything up and connect everything. All right. So first of all, Steve, this presentation came up because we had Raymond and I had a rejection on our app to the App Store, and we really wanted to be, one of the first ones to actually get it published to the App Store. The initial rejection notice was we need to do something more interesting like searching and filtering and so forth, because we just had a series of list views or UI table views, what they're referred to in iOS, similar to like your contacts, right? And so we put search, we put selection, we put detail views, but we still got rejected again. So too simple, You see, when I go back to the days of the fart apps or whatever, those are simple too, but they got accepted. So anyhow, luckily we had a little more time to come up with this presentation, because initially I wasn't sure what to present on. Other than we got rejected, this is how you do the App Store, but I wanted to give you guys something more concrete on about the App Store and the whole process and so forth. So when I was doing this presentation, I was trying to think. You all can all go online and read the documents and how to do it and so forth. So I want to give you something more unique. And I was trying to think how best to group it. So I came up with these four sections, which is we're going to talk about briefly. First is that there's a set of things that you got to do one time. You got to prepare your machine, you got to prepare your certificate, your developer certificate, and so forth. So there's a set of things that you got to do once, pretty much. Then there's a set of things that you got to do per app. So if you publish multiple apps to the store, you got to do these things for each app. Similarly, you have a set of per submission things. So you may have one app, but if you resubmit the app over and over again, because of whatever reason, you got to do those things as well. And finally, you have the post-submission things, which are pretty much a rejection notice, for example. So let's start off. So before starting the presentation, before going into details of the App Store, there's one concept which I found interesting the first time I started publishing stuff to the App Store, and that's that you need to have a certificate for everything. You need to have a certificate for deploying your device. You need to have a certificate for uploading to the App Store. You even need a certificate for push messages individually. These are all separate certificates. So, and to be honest with you, the first time I did it, I was intrigued at how, why so much security, why so much process and so forth. So, and I'm pretty sure people who haven't published yet to the App Store, or who have gone through the same experience. So before doing so, I wanted to first describe a little bit, take a few slides to describe a little bit this whole certificate and encryption and, thing, So, first, a brief understanding of certificates. Everyone knows about the two keys, right? The private key and the public key. And one encrypts and one decrypts, right? That's pretty much the gist of it, and to the extent that most people know. But there's a lot more to that, and it's interesting how Apple takes advantage of that of this concept. And but to understand it, you need to be able to understand precisely what those two keys do beyond the encryption and the decryption. So first, excuse me here, there's a little delay on my phone. So what are they? What are they really? Cover that. Sorry about that. So this is a typical understanding. You have a plain text document, which is encrypted by a public key. Public keys are available for everyone to use. And this encrypted document is then delivered to someone who only has the private key, and only he can decrypt the document and read it. That's the general understanding of the public-private key concept. So in layman's terms, the king has the private key, and anyone can send the king a private message and guarantee that only the king can read it. Okay? Simple as that. But at the App Store, we're not encrypting stuff, are we? We're not really encrypting things and so forth. We're just signing and using these certificates for signing purposes. So interestingly enough, the same two keys used in reverse do the signing process. So what does that mean? You have now a document who's signed by a private key, and then anyone who happens to have a public key, anyone, because it's public, can verify that that document was signed by the guy who owns the private key. So it's the same concept but reversed. In the king layman's term, the king can sign his messages, and anyone with a public key can verify that that message came from the king. Okay? So Apple does this extensively for pretty much everything. So when you sign an app in the App Store, you're pretty much telling Apple is guaranteed that the app that you sent to the App Store actually came from you, because you already established the private and public key with Apple through the developer configuration process and so forth, which you're going to get to in a second. So the first thing you got to do is first you got to create your developer certificate. So now that we know what certificates are about, you need to get your developer certificate. To do so, you go to developer.apple.com and you click on the iOS Dev Center link. You need to obviously pay your $99, or I think, Louis, the students have access to this as a free.
If you take the class.
Exactly. So if you're in your Apple, iPhone, iOS development class with Steve, you get access to the Dev Center as well. Now, when you click on that, you have the you have various links everywhere, but the ones we're going to be focusing on primarily is a section here called iOS Provisioning Portal. The iOS Provisioning Portal gives you access to various things like certificates, devices, app IDs, and so forth, which we're going to talk about in a second. Okay, latency, sorry. You want to say it again? So most of these documents, to be able to create a certificate, there's no point in going through the actual line by line on how to do it, but the document's right there on how to do the workflow guide as well as the app development overview. So that's one of the things you got to do on a one-time basis. Once you have a developer certificate, you never have to do it again. That's a developer certificate that you can use for the life and your communication with Apple. This is just a sample of that link of the documentation and shows you and so forth. And another thing that you got to do, a one-time thing, is you have to register your device. So if you want to publish stuff to your actual physical device, besides using a simulator on Xcode, you have to actually register your device. So simply, again, you go and you click the Add Devices over there once you're on the Device tab, and you're gonna get to this screen where you can specify your device name as well as the device ID. And when you plug in your device in iTunes, it gives you access to the device ID. And we pretty much completed a set of one-time things that you got to do to be able to access the App Store. That's pretty much it. Those two things are the primary things. Now, there's a set of per-app things that also need to occur. So this is now when you finish developing your first app, and now you guys are ready to publish the app for the first time. So, and what are those? First of all apps must be uniquely named globally. And I think most of the Java developers, Java actually introduced this nomenclature. We have com.companyname. Appname. Whatever. So Apple actually has the same concept. And so to do this, you first have to tell Apple your intention of publishing this app. And Apple globally needs to be able to say, this app's ID is this ID. And you do that by actually taking the app ID section of the same provisioning portal that we went to earlier. And when you do that, of course, you have all the how-to again right there to be able to, on how to do it. And the button's over there on the right, as usual. And when you click on that, so here's an example of the cross-multiply, which is one of the apps that I have published in the App Store. You just give it a name, and of course down here you have com.olivero.crossmultiply, which is a unique global identifier for my app with regards to Apple. Okay, so no one, not even Electronic Arts or even the White House, can create an app ID with that ID. That's, and that's why we use our domain names in reverse order as a way to to ensure that uniqueness. Similarly, because the apps need to be signed by there's a provisioning process for the app as well. Okay, so you have a developer certificate and you also have a per app certificate. So there's a provisioning section in the portal where again you create the intent of publishing this app to the store. You activate it. They give you the public key, private key process, and then you download it and you install it onto your machine. Again, the how-tos are there, and which gives you a whole instruction on how to do it. And finally, you create each one over there on the right-hand side. So if you notice a pattern, the reason why I'm showing these little animations is because it's a pattern. You have the stuff over here on the right, the help and the how-tos on the middle, and then the actual action items are on the right-hand side to actually do them. And that's pretty much it for the per app things. Those are the only two things you got to worry about with regards to apps. Finally, well, actually not finally, third, there's a set of per submission things that we need to deal with. And for this, let me do a live demo. So I intentionally did an update yesterday to my app to actually do a submission today, my version 1.4 of my app. So in order to do that, I got to go to mirror mode real quick, because otherwise I'm going to have a hard time. I'm going to have a hard time. Mirror. Okay. So, and the screen's going to be kind of tight, because we're looking at the resolution of the projector here. So, keep this here on full screen, and then we're going to go to make this full screen also. So there's a website on Apple called iTunes Connect, which is slightly different than a developer.apple.com website, but it's the only portal that Apple uses for actually displaying and uploading the apps and so forth to the App Store. So this is where you configure the app. This is where you specify the icon images and the different things that are related to iTunes and the app being available in iTunes for download. So I'm going to go ahead and log in my developer account. And if you can notice just from the screens here, we might have some trouble with the resolutions, but if we do, then we'll deal with it. So on this screen, you have a bunch of things, your sales and trends, contracts, you have ads on your application as well. All this is like your portal for your actual app. Now, what we're looking for is the initial submission of the app or the configuration of an app. And to do that, you have to go to the Manage Your App Application section. In doing so, these are my only two apps that I have in the store. Alex Hana is still pending for upload, so pretty sure everyone knows Alex Hana. But if you notice, we have version 1.3 of the Cross Multiply app, which is already in the store and it's available, so it has a green icon. And of course the 1.4 version, which I created last night to actually upload. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the 1.4. And what you're seeing here is exactly, let me step back a second. So if I want to create a new app, all I have to do is create, add new app, and specify the my language and my app name, my SKU number, and finally the bundle ID. The bundle ID, if you remember back on the provisioning profile, when you create the provisioning profile on the app ID, you're actually specifying the ID of the unique ID of the app, which in this case is the bundle ID. So if you notice your cross.olivero.crossmultiply is the bundle ID for that app. Okay. But in this case, we're gonna just use the existing one, the existing app. Okay, scroll over good. So in here, there's a bunch of sections. So you have the app section, which you can update some basic things. Oops, now I can get in trouble here because I can't click on those, so I'm not going to click too many of them. And you have, of course, the details of the current version and details of the new version. So if I go to view details of the new version, because I can change the description of the current version, right? I can change a few things that are the live one. But these are all the settings for the new one that I'm going to go off now. And again, I can edit. I'm not going to click just in case I get stuck. but I can click and edit the metadata for it, and I can also click the version information, which allows me to change the icon and so forth. And down here in the bottom, we have 3.5 Retina screens, and we have 4-inch Retina screens, which are brand new for iOS, for the iPhone 5. And by the way, I discovered this as a new requirement because when I submitted 1.4 initially for this presentation, I got an immediate rejection saying that I was missing the screenshot for it. And apparently, because now we have iPhone 5s with a 4-inch display, there's a requirement that you have to put in an image for that particular version.
Works the same way with iPad apps too?
Correct. So if you had an iPad app, you would have to upload the Retina version of the iPad screenshot.
And now the Mini, same thing?
Well, the Mini happens to have the same resolution as the iPad 2, and the iPad 3 and 4 have the Retina resolution. So since they're the same resolution schematics, there's really just one aspect ratio if you want to consider that one. So you don't have to worry about doing the 2 different versions that we have here. Finally, this is more review information. So if they want to call me, or I can give notes to the reviewer. Hey, if you want to log into my app, it requires a password. Here's a password. These type of things. You can actually put those notes there in the reviewer, and that's it. So once you have the app configured on iTunes Connect, there's this concept called ready for upload, which you can't see. Oh, there it is. So I'm ready to upload my binary. So I've already finished everything, but I'm ready to upload. So I'm going to go ahead and make that ready for upload. They ask you some export specific questions. You can't export highly encrypted stuff where you can be enabling a terrorist to communicate securely, for example. So you have to actually answer here if you've made changes to those things, and if so, then of course it has a special review process for U.S. Customs and whatever, who knows. If not, then you save that step, of course. And then now, the next question is, I want to automatically release it once it's approved? Sure. And click OK. And then now my app is ready for, it's hard to see because I don't know where it is, but it's ready for upload. So that's the whole iTunes Connect side of things. We then have to go to the Xcode, and Xcode is pretty cool because prior to the version of Xcode that we have now, where everything is unified, we had separate apps for separate things. We had an app for the UI, what was it called? Interface Builder was a separate app, and the Xcode was a separate app, and it was and mind you, the App Store process was also a separate process as well. So it was really hectic. With the new one though, everything seems to be taken care of nicely, and so obviously we're really cramped on space, but even the toolbar up here is cramped. So here's my cross multiply app, and in order to publish to the App Store, you need to first select here, instead of a simulator, the actual iOS device. I'm not sure why this is a requirement. I'm presuming Apple wants you to first test on your iOS device first in order to publish to the store. But you need to be in the iOS device selection to be able to build an archive. So, and an archive is literally getting the bundle and packaging it all together and to getting it ready to ship to the App Store. So if I come over here and I say product, build for archiving, it's available for selection when an iOS device is selected. iOS device means that if you had your iPhone plugged in, you can publish the app right now to your iPhone and test it directly. If I go to the simulator real quick and I switch product build for archiving, it's not available. See? And that was honestly about an hour and a half of fumbling around to figure out why I couldn't get the archive menu took here. When I first built the app. So you have that already in your bag of tricks. So let's go ahead and stick iOS device. Now, as a former C++ builder, I always like to clean all my object code and so forth for my project. I'm pretty sure there's some other C++ developers here. Yeah, I see some head shaking there. And the next step is simply to build for the icon. Build for the archive just to see if there's any error messages or warning. And if there's not, then you can actually do the actual archive. So there's build succeeded, no issues. So let's go ahead and do the archive. when you do the archive, what happens is that it packages everything together and puts this new package inside of the archives section in this window that came up automatically. But in reality, that's available. That's available over here on the right-hand side called the organizer. Okay, so if I click on this organizer, it pretty much launches the organizer. And in the organizer, you have various things, the devices that you have configured and so forth, and in there, there's an archive. In the archive, if you notice, I have version, this is the version I built last night, and which pretty much puts us where we are right now in this demo. So the one that I'm actually going to upload is this one. Actually, I'm going to submit this one, because this one I rejected this one. So you select the archive, you give it a comment. This is 1 by 1.4, 8 by 8 capability. These are just your own internal comments to be able to track each version. And then finally, you can either validate for distribution or actually just distribute it directly. So it's good to always validate. Again, this now just asks you to log into your iTunes Connect account. Go ahead and log in. It's building. It identified this build with a previous submission. So it's pretty much asking me if everything's the same. I'm signing with my developer certificate. This is the actual application ID and so forth. So, which is the only one that's ready for upload on the iTunes Connect. If I had 2 or 3 that were ready for upload, this drop-down list would have those 2 or 3 that are available to select from. And finally, just click next, and my application has been validated. And I think we're in that. So click finish here, perfect. And the last step is, of course, to just distribute it. So it's just going to go through the same process again. Submit to the store. Submit to the store. Next. And it's being uploaded and submitted to the store. Okay. So going back to our presentation. I'm not going to switch monitors again. I'm just going to just play it from here. All right. So that was the live demo of section. That was section 3 of the app of the presentation. Okay. So everything we did right now are things that you have to do per app submission, right? So which is good here. So you can save some things like, you don't have to change the app icon or change some of the screenshots, but generally speaking, if you add a new feature, you need to add a new screenshot, you need to, describe what the description is, so you do all those things. And finally, post-submission things. And this is where where it varies, and you might be lucky, you might not. And a few post-submission things is you receive an email, an automatic email, every time. You remember that button that we clicked, ready for upload? So you get an email letting you know, hey, the status is waiting for upload, and you're ready to go. You also might get an email saying when the app is starting the review process, so someone actually grabbed it, is actually installing and playing around with it at Apple, so you get an email for that. And finally, of course, you either get an acceptance, or in this case, a rejection, which happens to be our case here. So our app was not able to post this version. And then there's a section called the Resolution Center in iTunes Connect. So when you actually go back to your app, the section where we just finished uploading, or clicking the ready for upload, there's a special link up there that says Resolution Center, right, nice and red and bold, which allows you to go back and see the reasons why and give you an opportunity to rectify that. For example, when I did my first upload, when I prepared my app for upload, I got a rejection email right away saying that the Retina 4-inch screen shot was not available. So I went back and put the Retinas for 4-inch screen shot and then made it ready for upload again. And that's pretty much it. Those are the four groupings of tasks that I think made sense to organize for this presentation to give you something good. And we're done. Thanks.
So any questions for Michael?
How long did it take for your app to get reviewed?
Initially, honestly, usually it's about 5 days, 5 to 7 days. I have noticed though, again, I published 3 versions of this. I have noticed that there's times during the year where, for whatever reason, like for example, when the iPhone 5 came about, the review process took a longer time, right? Because there's a limit of people reviewing, and there's a high number of submissions of people updating the app. So it might be 10 days or 14 days, and especially if you have an app that, that does something that Apple might not like, right? If you have a pretty cool Google Maps app, they might hold you off a little bit, or if you have a Google Voice app, before Google Voice took like 12 months to be approved for the app. So other than that, though, it should be a fair number of like 5 to 7 business days, and you're good to go. Feedback, if you get feedback, either it's approved or rejection reason.
Google Maps app that actually works.
Exactly.
Are the discussion reasons, the rejection reasons open for discussion?
Yes, in the resolution center, there is a opportunity for you to actually create a dialogue or a communication on let's call it the Apple board or the Apple Supreme Court, where you can go and make a claim and
it's escalated. It's not the same person that
exactly. And something that we're going to attempt, because our app was rejected twice. We have complied with the initial reasons, but the second time it was rejected. But they didn't give us any reasons, they just cited the same rule. So something that we're going to try, which I think will work, is the fact that the initial submission of the app already has a rejection trail, right? So they can see why it was rejected. Oh, there's not that much difference other than a search. Okay, it's rejected again, bah, So what we're going to do is we're going to delete that app from the iTunes Connect, create a whole new app bundle ID, create a whole new thing, and submit it as a brand new app. Because that has a search now, right? So hopefully, if it's approved, it's probably because the reasons are probably because previously the approver saw the trail of rejections and he just thought that there wasn't much of a delta to approve. While the new guy might see a clean slate and might think the app is cool and he might get approved. So we're going to try that, and we'll get back to AppDojo accordingly.
Do they identify the individual reviewers, like who
No.
it is, or
No.
an ID number or something?
No, not at all. No.
So you can't tell if it's the same or a different person, or...
Exactly. But even if it's a different person, for efficiency reasons, I consider those people like threads. So that thread's going to load back and see your history. So even if it's a different person,
Right.
they're going to see the history. So our idea is to just get rid of the history, and most likely we're getting different approvers anyway, but they're just seeing the history.
How big is the Supreme Court?
I don't know, but I've heard of people actually emailing Steve Jobs once, and he got the app approved. But that's a completely internal process, and
It's a lot harder to do that now.
yeah.
During that time that you get it reviewed, can you submit updates? So once they review it, they see the latest version that you put up?
Actually, that's a good question. One thing that's important is when you're in the actual. Let me see if I can get out of here. Yeah. So in iTunes Connect, you can go back and actually reject your app yourself. So, for example, right now we're in the ready for review state, waiting for review right here. So I can come over here and I can say, where's the option? Binary details. So I can explicitly reject the binary myself because I forgot, there's a bug or something. I forgot to lock out the masher account or something. Who knows? So I can reject the binary. It causes the whole process of getting the email saying that the app was rejected and so forth. Except you invoke the rejection yourself. And then again, you have to go through the whole process, ready for upload and so forth. So yeah. So you're not in limbo for 5 days.
No, but what I meant to say is during that review process, so let's say 5 days from now your app's going to get reviewed. Now 2 days before I want to make an update because I've just been working on it for 2 more days. You have to restart the whole process.
You go back in the line, yeah. So that swap right there doesn't mean that you stay in your position. You actually go back to the queue. Anything else?
Okay, if that's that's the last question. Then I'd like to thank Michael very much for this presentation. Thanks for all the time and effort to put it together and well executed. Thank you, Michael. Our next speaker comes to us from a company with a coffee name, with a caffeine fix to it. Colada Studios.
Latin flavor.
Yes. And so I'd like to introduce you, for those of you who have not met Carl, he's a member of AppDojo and has been talking to us from time to time about the exploits of his company, Colada Studios, and one of which is a financial strategy game for Android. Another, his partner in crime, Gabriel, has developed a Spanish version of I guess it'd be kind of a bundle. Yeah. So both are available today on Android, and if you go to their websites at Colada Studios, you can find links, and they would both appreciate you while you're doing his presentation. If you actually go there and download it and start using it, because he can use all the customer feedback possible. So we can at least, for those of us who have Android devices, it would be great for you to participate in the development of what will, we think, be a successful company. So with that, I give you Carl Morris, the founder of Colada Studios.
Thanks a lot, Steve. All right, so good evening, everyone. Sorry, this is verbatim the talk I gave. All right, so I'm just going to give you a quick talk about our experiences at Colada Studios in building mobile apps on a budget, or more specifically, running a company that builds mobile apps on a budget. This is the exact talk that I gave a few months ago at the Mobile Technology Consortium. A few things have changed, but not a lot, so more or less this will be a verbatim talk. So again, Carl Morris, co-founder of Colada Studios. We started this company a few months ago, July of 2012, myself and my co-founder, Gabriel Mojica. We are both PhD students at FIU. We met when we started in 2009. He is an ardent iPhone fanboy, I guess you'd call it. I am a more reasoned, grounded Android user. So clearly, we were at odds with a lot of things. So there was a lot of discussion about mobile, a lot of discussion about apps, services, platforms, and coming out of those discussions, that kind of led us into the whole app development arena, and we sort of formed this company as a vehicle to push those ideas out. So essentially, because we were grad students, there was one major drawback, and the simple fact is that we had a $0 budget. So that posed a very big challenge for us. So the obvious question is, of course, why not just go out and get funding? And I don't want to say we tried, because if I say that, it sounds like we went and we failed. We actually tried. We went out, we had our meetings, we had discussions, lots of sit-downs, and actually had lots of offers on the table, lots in quotation marks. But in the end, we actually found that, number one, these meetings, this traveling, it was taking up a lot of time. And we serve two masters, we have this company, but we're also research students. So we didn't get a lot of time to do our research, and within the company itself, we didn't have a lot of time to do development. So we had to actually make a decision that based on the offers that we were getting, which were not very attractive to begin with, we opted to just simply step back from the whole funding arena and try to bootstrap the company ourselves. Could we actually build our company, build our services using our internal resources? And again, to remind you, 2 grad students. So we wanted to build the apps ourselves, essentially. We wanted to utilize whatever resources were available to us, so how best could we exploit them? And of course, to do that, we had to make sure that we had a plan in place. So the plan was fairly simple. We were going to build apps. We were going to make them viral and popular. And then we'd get acquired for $1 billion. Sound plan, but not very actionable. So we have to go back to the drawing board. We kind of decided we refine this. So plan version 2. Essentially, we had to be organized and efficient. We had to utilize and exploit tools to make sure that we were running at an optimal level as possible. So I'll just give you a quick rundown of some of the tools, the major tools that we utilize at the company. So we're going to name names, but none of this is, of course, an endorsement. So 3 services and tools that we utilize. Some of these may be familiar to you: Google Apps, Trello, and Assembler. So Google Apps is the obvious one on this list. And generally, we go to that for just general back office stuff. We get mail, calendaring to keep track of all the meetings that we're having. We utilize Dropbox as sort of a electronic filing cabinet, but we've investigated Drive and may actually move over to Google Drive eventually, just to keep everything in a single place. And through the Google Apps Marketplace, we've had access to CRM apps as well as ERP, project management tools, things of that nature. These tools are available for free with certain limitations. So for example, you may get 3 or 5 users for free. Once you go over that limit, then you have to pay. But again, for us, this works out nicely. Trello is a tool you may have heard of. It's, at its core, a glorified list manager, but it actually makes managing, documenting, discussing our projects pretty trivial. So this is, for example, just an old screenshot of when we were developing one of our games. We were able to keep track of milestones, keep track of features, where we were, have discussions, we could tag, set schedules, things of that nature. I mean, I don't know how clear the screenshot is, but we essentially just have lists of lists of things that we need to get done and timelines to do that. Assembler is something that some of you may, if you're not familiar with the service, you're at least familiar with the idea. Some of you probably be utilizing Bitbucket, I think is a name that has been thrown around in the dojo a lot. Or what's the, I'm having a senior moment. GitHub. Or GitHub. Well, figure. Yeah, I have a GitHub user. I don't know why. But this is your standard versioning system, source code repository. It allows us to do commits. It integrates nicely with our development tools. Specifically for Android, we of course utilize Eclipse, and we get SVN as well as Git and a few other services. There is a ticketing system, but you have to pay for that. So of course we do without. Trello kind of fits the bill for that purpose. But again, we're able to we have our code, we're able to share code efficiently, we're able to do cooperative coding. We can have discussions about certain features, certain things. So we kind of bring that whole idea of managing a project to the code level, and Assembler allows us to do that. So the next item on our plan is essentially we want to co-opt only when it's necessary. So when you have a $0 budget, you can't just spend on everything that you need. You sometimes you have to kind of look out there and see what services are available to you that you can utilize at little or no cost. So for some services, we had to outsource. Things like development of graphical assets, we actually utilized Elance, which is a pretty nice service. You may have heard of 99 Designs, a few others out there. So we were able to get some work done at rock bottom prices without breaking the bank, essentially. Local resources. We pronounce that friends and family. You have to be able to turn to people that you know and say, hey, I need help doing a particular thing. For example, one of our apps has been translated to Mandarin, and we got that done for free. So that's a nice feature to add. We're multilingual. And you have to have a network that you're able to tap. So whether it be somebody who's in the same business that you're in, somebody that has already gone through it, whether it's a lawyer, whether it's someone with some marketing knowledge, you want to be able to take up the phone, spend 5 minutes and just get some advice on something. So that's something that's been invaluable to us. Third item is we wanted to make sure that we built self-sufficient services. And what do we mean by that? It's essentially apps that pay for themselves. Not discounting our own development time, we wanted to make sure that at launch, these apps, where they may not be profitable, they should at least pay for their own maintenance. So one way that we ensured that we could do that was we looked at platform as a service providers to provide our backend services. And this isn't to talk on PaaS, but essentially you have this idea of your platforms, whether it be Ruby on Rails, whether it be PHP or what have you, servlets. you have these providers that can give you that backend. And many of these PAs, platform as a service providers, they give you their entry-level tiers for free. Now, these entry-level tiers are usually enough for you to test and deploy your apps, and perhaps even maintain a marginal user base. So again, you're able to get these services without having to spend any money. Other benefits is that these services generally scale on demand. So you're able to put out a free service, and whenever your user base gets sufficiently large, you can actually spin up new instances of backend machines. So you're able to handle that load whenever it arises. Because of that, of course, we don't need to maintain excess capacity. And if we've developed our apps properly and we've done our math, then whenever we are at the point where we've exceeded our free resources based on our user growth, then those users should be able to pay for the services that as we escalate. And again, just to continue naming names, here are two of the providers that we utilize. Heroku for Ruby on Rails, and we utilize OpenShift, which gives us a PHP framework. So two of our apps use two different platforms. And finally, in our plan, we came up with this concept of being lean through engineering. And this simply means when you don't have money to throw at a problem, you have to think about it a little longer. You have to kind of come up with what is the best way to solve this. And best has to have equal parts of efficient and inexpensive. So I want to give you just a quick case study of one of our apps, Stock Trader Challenge. And the premise is kind of what you mentioned earlier. It's a stock trading game, and it kind of has this challenge aspect to it. So feel free to download it and have a look. But one of the core components of the game is that we need stock quotes. So the server has to be able to get frequent and up-to-date quotes for each stock that a user may query or want to purchase. And whether it's live or delayed is not really the issue. Now, the providers of these quotes generally have quotas in place. Whether it's a hard quota, which is what you generally run into if you're utilizing free services, or it's a soft quota, which is what you run into if you're using paid services, because they'll gladly let you go over the quota and then bill you at the end of the month. So nonetheless, there are quotas there, and you have to respect them or be willing to pay to go over. So we need a way to limit the amount of requests that we were making to these service providers for quotes. So the first idea was sort of an obvious one, right? Come up with a cache. And that has obvious benefits. If somebody asks for the price of Google right now, and then somebody asks for that price 20 seconds later, there is a good chance that the difference between those two quotes may not be such that we need to go back to the server and make another hit. So we'll just give the guy the price that we got 20 seconds ago. You know, when you study stocks, you kind of realize that that's actually not necessarily a bad approach, because there's no such thing as a stock price. It really comes down to who you're buying from. So that was version 1, you could say. But we again thought about it a little longer, and we said, you know, we can probably do a little better. So we came up with this idea of a smart cache. Now, a smart cache kind of extends this idea of giving you a cached quote. We came up with something called an estimated quote, and it's exactly what the name describes. We sort of guess what the price of a stock is at the time you ask us. Now, we only do that guess. We only do give you an estimated quote if we believe that it's safe. It's safe to give you a guess at this time. And how do we determine if something is safe or not? Well, we look at your last quote, and we look at the standard deviation for the last 10 or 20 historic quotes. If the last quote falls within the range of a certain multiple of the standard deviation, then we can estimate based on the direction and the deviation of the stock. If it falls outside of that range, then we say, all right, this stock is volatile, we'll go back to the server, we'll get a fresh quote, and that's what we'll give to the user. And of course, we have ways that we can short circuit, so we don't want to always be getting estimates. So this is one example where you kind of apply engineering because again you don't have the money to just pay and get quotes all day long. So this is the plan that we had developed. Essentially, this has become the philosophy of how we operate, of how we run the company. So far, it's been working out pretty well for us. We've managed to launch 2 games, and yes, Spanish word games, some of you will be familiar with it, but we've introduced it to the group before. Again, it says, you could think of it as a Spanish version of Boggle or Scramble with Friends. For Spanish speakers, it has a few features that, of course, distinguishes it from these games, and we have many more features coming down the pipeline. Available for Android today, so you can go ahead and download. A few weeks later, or a few weeks ago, we launched Stock Trader Challenge, which again is a challenge-based stock trading game. Just for my own purposes, how many of you have Android devices? Yeah. Oh, it literally was 3. Wow. Okay. Okay, so please go ahead and download. Yeah, and rate us. I used to say rate us 5 stars, but no, rate us what you think we deserve. That's how we get feedback. Rate us what you think we deserve. So, what's next for us? Well, of course, it's that $1 billion. We still want it. But unfortunately, there is no roadmap telling us how to get there. You know, there are many multi-million-dollar funded companies that haven't figured this out. So we're constantly working at it. And it's a challenge for us because everything I mentioned before. So the only thing that we can do is essentially try to stick to our plan, stick to our philosophy. You know, how we operate the company, stay on the, keep our operating costs as low as we can. We want to iterate quickly and effectively, and that means gathering data. You know, we can't go and survey you. Nobody's going to go to our website and fill out a survey. So it means analytics. It's gathering information about how people are using our apps, what they're saying about it, you know, what they do. For example, I can give you an anecdote now that we couldn't before. Our downloads for our apps do not tie in with the amount of accounts we have on our servers. We find that more than half, in some cases, of people that download the app, before they even get to the second screen, remove it. And why that is? They don't want to create accounts. So even though we've made it as seamless as we think we can, you can just click on a button and log in with Facebook. Some people don't want to do that. So we're actually now implementing what we call frictionless sign-in. So as soon as you get the app, we'll just generate some specific data for your device, create the account automatically, and just drop you in the game. Then later we'll give the user the ability to go back and enter the information if they so choose. So this is something that, again, we would never have known beforehand. So only gathering data allows us to do this. And that's data that we gather from our own databases and things like that. But we also utilize third-party services like Flurry that can give you a lot of other useful data. So you know, we use it and we encourage other people to do the same. We try to strike a chord with customers. So while we like everyone to use our apps, we're right now, our strategy is not to build apps for the mass market. We identify niche groups and we build apps for them. So whether it's a stock trading game for people that want to kind of enter that area, or it's a board game for Spanish speakers because we feel that that's an underserved market, those are groups that we target. And we believe that once we do that, people will take our apps and they'll, if you can do such a thing, develop a rapport with it. And we hope that that'll drive user retention. And through that, we hope that we can grow the company, and then that $1 million check will be on the way. Questions, comments, and of course, when you think of them, go download our apps. Yes, sir.
You said, when you kind of asked the question and you answered it, with regard to 2.0, that it was going, you know, how that it was working out pretty good for you.
Yeah.
How do you define that?
Well, in terms of the amount of effort that we've put into marketing and the sign-ups and interactions that we get. So we've launched 2 apps and we've taken 2 different approaches to marketing. So you could almost say one is a control. So with the first app we launched, we did some targeted marketing on Facebook, we did some, and of course regular guerrilla marketing. When we launched Stock Trader Challenge, which was just a few weeks ago, we actually did no marketing, just to see what the difference was.
Stuck it on the
We just put it on the store. I mean, we blogged about it, we put it on the website, but nothing else. Sort of as a control to see what we were getting in terms of turnaround. So now when we measure our user base with the 2 apps, we're able to see clearly, you know, even before, regardless of the retention rate, just to see who gets to the app, we're able to see who's doing what. Okay. And then based on the data that we gather, whenever we release new versions, we can see, all right, this was our problem, we found this was our problem for certain persons, now we see that we're actually moving through this.
Because normally in a in a business,
Yeah.
you define whether you're doing okay or not based on your sales, revenue, bottom line, things like that, so, I mean.
Not possible yet. So we aren't we don't have the type of user base yet that would generate the type of income that would, for example, make us attractive for acquisition. And we don't purport to them, we didn't expect it.
Okay.
Right? So it really comes down to, can we increase engagement? Can we increase the user base, and can we increase engagement? So whenever we notice that people are spending time here, but not spending time here, what can we tweak? And when we do that, do we notice an uptick in the amount of time spent?
I want to compliment you. You're staying very close to your customer and really working hard, and I think succeeding in a lot of ways to understand what they're, what they're doing with it, what they're liking, what they're disliking, responding immediately.
Yeah, circumstances, right? So again, when you don't have tens of thousands to throw at a marketing campaign, every customer that you get, every user that you get, you need to hold on to them. And so we have to come up with strategies to do that.
One more question, if you don't.
Yeah, please, this is the
Way
time.
back in the very beginning, you said you guys were going out, making presentations to potential, I guess, venture capital, angel investors, whatever. What? And none of the offers were, I forget how you put it, acceptable.
We said attractive. So
why? What was wrong with them? What were you looking for that you didn't get?
all right. So let me give you some anecdotes. Number one, if you want to be hired or work for an app development company or work for some larger group that wants to build apps, the easiest way to do it is to start a company yourself. The amount of what I think the term is acqui-hire offers that we got is remarkable.
Okay.
But outside of that, you could say it was our own undoing in a way. Because number one, we weren't building a conventional startup in the way that in the thing, or as it would come to mind when you hear the term. Usually a startup is a company that's building one thing and building a company around it. We weren't doing that. We're building a company that's building the varying apps, and you can see based on our two offerings. Yeah, they don't have a lot related to each other. So there was always some concern, like for example, I like this app. I want to invest in this, but if I invest in your company, am I investing in both? What happens if this one fails? Things like that. And I guess the impetus would be then for us to probably spin off one into another, into its own company. So we had those options available to us. But there was always that inhibition on the side of potential investors. And when we did get to the point where they said, well, yes, we could invest, the terms were not necessarily great. So it would be a certain amount of money. Yeah, we could.
Meaning they wanted too much of the company, or?
In a sense, yes. And yeah, while we could go do this for a year, we'd be funded well enough that we could leave our PhD programs for a year and try to build out the apps. It wasn't necessarily something that we wanted to do. So what they were describing in terms that they would lay out wasn't necessarily something that was attractive to us.
So you guys wanted to stay with your
We wanted to
nature.
We're going to finish our PhDs, so it's not something that we could. So we can't take the conventional.
And they wouldn't allow
startup
that, right? Those
not that they wouldn't allow it, but the offers factored that in. So let's put it that way.
Yeah.
They would factor that in. The fact that, okay, we were not going to be 24 hours building apps. Yeah, we still had to go to conferences in Omaha. Then, that factors in. So, again, so there were offers, and put it this way, there were offers that we could have taken. We could have taken it and been very happy just building this, but it's not what we wanted to do.
Had you and Zabriel defined ahead of time what you were looking for in terms of what would be an acceptable offer versus?
Oh yes.
You thought of all these, pretty much all these things?
We have this is an honest end. Is it? Okay. We have the number where we said yes, we would no longer do the PhD. So we didn't get that offer, so we're continuing. I mean,
so it was either, was it either get that or nothing at all, or get a lesser offer, but it would allow us to continue doing our...
That was essentially it. So we get a lesser offer, and again, if we kept at this, we could have, I'm pretty sure we would have found something acceptable and probably been able to. But when you look at the amount of the company that you have to give up, as well as the sort of commitments that you are now expected to make, you kind of have to ask yourself, all right, based on my own goals and what I'm trying to achieve, is this the best approach for me, or do I, can I build it without the funding? If I can, then maybe that's the route to take. So clearly, you lose something, but it's a decision you make.
This will be the last question.
Sorry. So when you create an app, when you start creating an app, what goes into decision making when you decide whether you're going to make it an app that's going to be a fixed cost? Is it going to use ads, or is it going to have what iOS provides in-app purchases, whatever?
So I guess if I can succinctly put together your question, you're saying what type of revenue models do we look at?
Yeah, how do you decide? Is it a simple?
Well, okay, so put it this way. Whenever we're looking at how we're going to generate revenue, everything is on the table. We try to say, okay, what doesn't make sense? Then we take that out. So far, everything makes sense. So we have ads, we have in-app purchases. You can pay to remove ads. Will be able to pay to remove ads in the stock trading game. For a certain mode, you can pay to have your balance increased. You know, they call it pay to win, but it's not really that. So everything is on the table as far as we're concerned in the beginning, and then if something doesn't make sense for a particular genre or type of app, then we can scratch that. But in the beginning, we'll take your money, however.
All right, well, let's give a round of applause for this great presentation. Carl, thank you so much. I think there's a ton of insight that you've been able to share with the group, and we hope to get an update from you in a few months. And also, please do let us know when the next updates come from your apps, so we can iOS versions. You get the rest of the room here. We'll be all having a big stock trader challenge party. So, all right. So we have one more presentation for this evening. We have a special guest, I think, here as well. So Michael Lennart, our professor from University of Miami, has been a mentor with AppDojo from the beginning, and as you know, he has many very good ideas. And so some of the ideas he'd like to share with you today in the area of medical devices and how that pertains to apps. So with that, I'd like to introduce Michael and have him tell you a little bit more about this.
Can I borrow cards or some of these? I have not.
Okay, so we'll take a couple of minutes just to get the...
Sorry.
You guys haven't thought about like giving us part of
pitching or something?
yeah, or like sometimes I don't know, I'll share with the
Yeah, yeah, sure.
yeah.
So we could do a whole meeting on that. You got somebody. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Yeah, that would be great.
No, after this week.
I think that would be a great thing to something that they can relate to.
Yeah, well, this week. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, just have my click.
Thanks. Okay, so let's talk about another application that might be interesting and might be tempting to get into, has a potential. But before I start talking about this one, this topic, let me just tell you that we spent like how many years with Peter? 10 years at UNM. teaching entrepreneurship class for biomedical engineers. And the reason was that Peter spent how many years at college?
22.
22.
No, 19, sorry.
19 in this building, not here because this was a garage or whatever.
This was part of the garage.
Yeah, this is.
So he's familiar with this issue, and our ambition was to get people like you involved in this topic. And in spite, actually, I mean, the entrepreneurship education goes back like 20 years or something like this. They try to teach, and it still has problems. It's still struggling with many problems. And I am very impressed by Steve's efforts, because this might be, I mean, I don't say that this is the solution, but this is a better way to approach that. What we have seen being involved for 10 years in this problem. And I just recently bumped into this article in the Scientific American, the last Scientific American, which discusses the title was "Why Germany Still Makes Things." The curious thing is that while the U.S. is losing or lost a lot of labor to China and India, Germany retained its labor force. In fact, the unemployment rate in Germany, I think, is 5.4 right now, which is very impressive, in spite of the fact that Germany pays the highest loan, probably in the world. I mean, they are like Switzerland and Sweden. They pay higher, but Germany is one of the highest paying countries. Why is that? The reason is the high-tech information is the driving force, and the interesting thing is now, where does it come from? Interestingly, it comes from partnerships between universities and the industry. One example is here, BMW and the Technical University of Munich has a partnership where the students work together with the company. And they are, I mean, one example in this article was the carbon fiber kerosene of the new electric BMW, full electric BMW, which is a PhD thesis. It's based on a PhD thesis of a DOM student. There are industrial parks at universities like Aachen and Kassel. I used to Kassel. So here in the States, companies spending, I mean, they donate money to the universities, or they have, they establish professorships. So they pay for professorship. In Germany, they build parks and they work together with the universities instead of doing that. Fraunhofer Gesellschaft has all over the world centers where they teach and they do research in manufacturing. They did have one here in Hialeah. Yeah. And there's a tradition of family-owned companies that have long plans. And actually, that's another issue that the U.S. has very short-term plans. So they ran out of ideas quickly. So the question is, why the U.S. doesn't make things? regarding the university and industry connections, because there is not much tolerance for the extracurricular activities. Most of the companies or startups are established by drop-offs. Yeah, they cannot. Students actually Carlos talking also about problems. Combining study and doing business at the same time. Interdisciplinary and group work is not encouraged. So we had this problem with our class, that it was very difficult to organize. First of all, to get accepted that our senior design project is done by groups rather than individually. And secondly, it was very difficult to get into this interdisciplinary cooperation. There are very few teachers like Peter, having an industry background. And there is no free exchange between academia and industry. So research is done in the industry separately, and the universities are doing the research separately. So there is no direct, or there is very few direct interaction. And the other big topic we can talk about is 4 hours, intellectual property, so patents and things like that. Okay, so let's talk about the biomed. So why biomed? There is a huge, so why would you be interested in biomed application apps to develop biomed? There's a huge market potential. Why? Because there is supporting demography. There's an aging population, huge numbers, so the baby boomers like me are responsible for the large numbers. People live longer. Yeah? The baby boomers are tech savvy and they are independent. So that's another big reason. And there is a problem with the number of doctors and nurses. So we don't have enough people to take care of this growing population and longer living population. And there is a high level of specialization. So we need, doctors are very, medical professionals very specialized. The other big reason is the healthcare reform, which is now on the books. It's here if you want or not. So there is a universal healthcare coverage coming, which means that the number of people covered by healthcare is larger, and the type of coverage is expanding, indicating big business. There are several programs that you can utilize. One is the research program, like NSF or SPR, so Small Business, the NIH program. And there are business programs supporting where you can get funding. You can rely on existing technology. There are lots of medical devices that you can utilize for your labs. And computerization is again something which is a requirement. So the other reason is motivation. So this is a human-oriented app, and your motivation can come from family, friends, or yourself if you have some illness. We have had several students who had some problem themselves, and so they were motivated to come up with medical devices to solve their problem, or they had somebody in the family who had problems. So they were directly motivated. It's not just a general human motivation. In general, you want to have the society, and especially there are many biomedical applications that are useful for the third world. Now, why apps and not other biomedical areas? We have worked on biomedical devices, and it didn't succeed to the extent we hoped it will succeed. The reason was that to develop biomedical devices is very costly, and it's time consuming. So the whole what you need for developing a biomedical device is a lot, and the hurdle to get approved is even more difficult. And that's the reason none of our projects in 10 years became a business venture. We succeeded to get like 2 or 3 patented, and we got funded through an organization called NCIA, National Collegiate Innovator and Inventors Alliance, and the students got grants like $10,000 $30,000, but it never got to the point where it became a business venture. The other reason is, so you don't have this problem with the apps. So the apps you can develop in your bedroom or in the garage. I mean, so you don't even need a garage. Apps can build on existing technology and devices and develop quickly. So that's another thing. So you can rely, so you can utilize all the which is a huge amount of devices and technologies which is out there, and you can utilize them. And there are many biomedical softwares and applications that you can use as an ideal source. Couple of concrete proposals. A big domain is telemedicine. You can monitor and test various physical functions like heart rate or ECG, blood pressure, glucose level, lung, and so on. I mean, these are the other application is self-monitoring. These are links. So if you want,
we'll
you
post
have
it.
it on
We'll post it.
so you can post it. So you can go to the web and look at the articles. Secondly, the athletes, fitness plus, and hypochondriacs like me. The other one is monitoring hazardous environments like X-ray radiation or electromagnetic fields. We did have a project for testing electromagnetic fields, but that could be used as an app. For developing an air pollution. The other big potential business application would be nurses, support nurse, the work of nurses. Okay, that's another biggie. Glucose monitoring and estimating blood glucose level for diabetics. Diabetes is a huge problem. I mean, it's a national tragedy actually. And the problem is that it's not an easy thing to monitor continuously glucose levels. And they are the insulin pumps that provide insulin based on the monitored glucose level, but it's not automated. So you need some kind of automated mechanism in order to control the pump. There's under the skin, there's sensors under the skin, and there is which is linked to non-implanted transmitters, okay. I just read an article that it's not just the blood sugar level, but also there are two other hormones that need to be monitored in order to control the insulin intake. The other application would be heart rate monitoring the heart rate fluctuation in emergency situations. So sometimes it's I mean, you can, based on the heart rate, you can tell whether there is a crisis, and you can intervene before it becomes fatal, and also for light detection. Another application would be scheduling and reminding for taking medications. That's again a big problem with elderly people. Lastly, this would be another application to computerize medical prescription. So check the databases for consistency, that because each medication has different side effects, and it's impossible to, nobody knows how different medications interact and what kind of problems they cause. And this kind of refilling drugs, which is again a security problem. So there are issues that you can attack. I think that's it.
So you mentioned building on top of existing technology. Are there insulin pumps right now that I could write an app for?
Well, yes, of course there are insulin pumps. There are two kinds of insulin pumps. The kind that goes inside the body with a reservoir that has to be refilled periodically, and the other kind that you wear on your belt, and there is a little catheter that goes to the navel under the skin. And these are basically open loop devices. To make it closed loop, you need a sensor. And the sensor has been a problem for 40 years now. Because the sensors, as we said, don't last very long, because the sensor becomes coated with some kind of biological material, and then it becomes unreliable. So what you need to do is look for a sensor that is reliable in the long term. And one of the approaches that has been reasonably successful is to build it into a pair of eyeglass frame, because the tear film on your eye is a reflection of the glucose level. So it's a complex system. I can't describe it to you, partly because I don't understand it, and partly because it's very complex. But anyhow, this is a sensing method. And if you can take that information and combine it with the control of the delivery system, the open loop system, then you have a closed loop system. And that is something that has been elusive for many years. But there is another application that I just talked to someone this afternoon, and so this may interest you. Cardiac pacemakers have been around for almost 50 years, actually more than 50 years, 52 years. And at the beginning it was a little box the size of a hockey puck that would deliver boom, 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 boom 72 times a minute to the heart, and the heart would contract. And then it became more and more sophisticated. They paid attention to the heart, sensing the electrical activity, and then turning itself on and off automatically. And I could go on for probably an hour to tell you about the complexities, but one of the problems was that once you put it inside the body, you had no way of adjusting it. So if the prescription for this device was incorrect at the beginning, then the only way to correct it was to surgically remove it and implant another one. So the obvious answer was to make it programmable. But this required a new technology, which became available around 1970, and it was done by the company that used to live in this building. And it was a big electromagnet that sent pulses to close a reed switch. And the number of closures would determine the program. And because this was not a terribly reliable system, the amount of information you could transfer was limited. So you could, in the initial version, you could have 6 different intensities and 4 different intensities and 6 different rates. So the total number of choices was 24, and out of that, 6 of them were excluded because those were not really sufficiently safe, so there were 18 choices. But as the field became more and more sophisticated with radio frequency transmission of information, and eventually it became bidirectional, the device could send out information, tell its setting, and so on. It became necessary to have a programming device. The first one was as big as an old IBM typewriter, and it cost about $7,000 not to sell, but to build. And that was totally unacceptable. Over the years, these devices have been reduced to, in most cases, some kind of a laptop-type computer modified to control all the digital information, all the programming, and there is a telemetry device connected to it which communicates to the device. Okay, now I get to the point. This guy has a medical device company for veterinarians. The veterinarians began to implant pacemakers in dogs about 20 years ago. And the way they did it is that they called somebody at the hospital and they said, if there's a person who dies with a pacemaker, take it out and sell it to me. And then they cleaned it up and put it in a dog. Actually, they used to do this in the Latin countries in humans. You know, one ran down, cleaned it up, and put it in somebody else. But that's unacceptable today because of the HIV epidemic and so on. But with dogs, it's okay. But now they want to have implantable pacemakers, new, high reliability, and fairly complex. The problem is that the veterinarians are not doing this as routinely as surgeons and cardiologists. A typical specialist, as Michael mentioned, the specialization is unbelievable in medicine today. You know, there are orthopedic surgeons who only operate on the knee. There are orthopedic surgeons who only operate on the shoulder, and so on. So those who specialize in what they call electrocardiography may implant 3 pacemakers a week. So there's a lot of turnover, a lot of experience. They learn all the intricacies. The vets do maybe 5 a year if it's a busy practice. So now the problem is that they need a programmer. They have the pacemaker available from the sources, but they can't afford the programmer because that requires an investment on the part of the veterinary practice and it's too expensive. So the suggestion was to simplify this operation in such a way that the programming does not take place at the veterinary clinic, but at the manufacturer. So the manufacturer makes a custom program device for you. The doctor says that I want these parameters, or better yet, the doctor says I have a dog that is 75 pounds and it has such and such symptoms, and based on that information, I want a properly programmed pacemaker. And then the factory programs it, delivers it, and the physician only has a handheld device, such as some kind of an iPhone, which then can send very simple commands, 2 or 3 varieties, to make fine-tuning adjustments for a particular dog without understanding the entire range of parameters. Because if you look at a contemporary pacemaker programmer, it has at least a dozen different parameters that you can program. And then there are different informations that you can download into the device for interrogation later on, and there are storage systems built into it so it can tell you how many times you had a premature beat and how many times it had a paused and so on. None of it is necessary for a dog. So there is an opportunity. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that the hang-up on all of this is that the hardware itself takes years and years to develop, and before you can make money on it, you have to go through the Food and Drug Administration's approval or approval in another country, and that takes years and years and millions of dollars. So I advise everybody against going into the implantable device development, because that is a field that only deep pockets can manage. But applications such as interconnecting an existing sensor with an existing device is something that perhaps suitable for small companies. There's a local company here that has been developing a device to cure glaucoma. Glaucoma is a disease that affects a lot of people. The pressure inside the eye increases and eventually it destroys the retina. So something has to be done about it, and traditionally it was treated with medication and it doesn't work very well. And now this company developed a device that is about 12 millimeters long, 3/4 of a millimeter diameter. It takes about 8 minutes to implant. Sounds very simple, but it's a very delicate device, and before the Food and Drug Administration allows this device to be commercialized, first you have to go through a series of animal trials which go on for years. Then you have to go to another country such as the Dominican Republic, where there are very good ophthalmic surgeons, and have them operate for 2 years and collect the data. And then you can go to the FDA and ask for permission to offer this device at no cost to stateside ophthalmologists in a certain number, and again follow those for a certain number of years. The estimate is that it may cost $25 million before this little gizmo that is really less than a gram in weight and contains material that pennies can generate income. And the end result is going to be that when they show it to the patient and say, this thing costs $700, they're going to faint because it looks like the tip of a match. So it's a very difficult business to get into it. It was very easy 50 years ago, but as time went on, it became more and more difficult. But the markets are enormous. As he said, we're all getting older. You guys are probably going to live on the average 85 years, maybe 90. Not something many people look forward to, but that's a fact of life. Anyhow, that's it.
Okay, so go forward here, but I think that concludes our presentations today. So I very much appreciate your attendance and your attention. Some programming notes. Next Thursday is Thanksgiving Day, so we won't be having a meeting. Enjoy your turkey and keep building your apps. Okay? Because the week after that will probably be our last meeting, because then we've got finals and everything else. So I'd like to get some updates from all the teams in 2 weeks' time. In the meantime, feel free to bounce ideas off our Facebook page. For those of you who have just joined us new and not been to an AppDojo meeting before, you probably received an email from me. Just reply back, and I'll make sure that I'll send you an invitation to our webpage where we have a running group at Facebook that we talk and share information. So I invite you to be a part of that. And I look forward to seeing what apps you have to show in 2 weeks' time. So thank you very much.